Welcome back to the third part of this video series on this demonstration of the larger painting of 33 by 70. And I titled it Earthwork Pale Moon Blades Keeping Watch. But I want to show you the finished painting here along with a video that shows you some of the details and then hopefully take you back into how I got there. One of the things you want to do in the refinement stage is really just sit back, put a stool, a chair about 15 feet away from the painting and just stand back and look at the painting for a little while and try to realize what it is you've done up to this point in terms of a focal point, a secondary focal point in this case, color scheme, color theory, all those things really you're just going to build on top of. You're not going to start just adding detail everywhere. And I jokingly refer to this as the wine sipping stage, meaning that you slow down. And I think a lot of people do the opposite. They speed up, they want to put detail everywhere, and they tend to lick the canvas, is what we call it, which really kind of destroys the whole process that you've done up to this point. So again, sit back and sip your wine and enjoy this slower moment through your refinement stage. One of the ways you can slow down is to start using smaller tools. So you see me holding up a much smaller brush here all of a sudden in the refinement stage. And I'll be using smaller brushes along the way, and that really slows down the process for you. So it's a good time to pull out small rounds, small flats, and small filberts. So as I dive back into the refinement stage here, I'm going to go right to the main focal point to begin with these smaller tools in hand. And as I'm looking at it, I'm thinking about form, a little bit of space within that small little patchwork of grasses and water in there and trying to separate out the two. And that's really job number one, about 10 minutes right there in the main focal point with small tools. That will start you off on the little journey into your refinement stage. The second thing I'm going to do here is really to focus on saturating the color within the main focal area. And as you'll notice here, the colors kind of around the focal areas I put on the new paint here are really kind of matte and dry. And I didn't use any retouch varnish on this final stage because I want to see the difference between the focal area and the rest of the painting at this point. So this is when I pull out the really good paint, the Rembrandt, the Gamblin, and sometimes these little tubes are, anywhere between $20 for a small 30 milliliter tube up to $40 sometimes, but they do last a while and I don't use a lot of it in this refinement stage. And that's what a lot of artists do. They put the really good paint on last, and a lot of the other paint in the other painting is medium quality. So that's what I'm doing here in terms of saturating that color in the focal area. Number three, I'm going to expand the focal point to lead your eye around the canvas. And this is really, I think, where a lot of people get confused and a little bit lost in the refinement stage, and they want to put paint basically everywhere. I'm putting the paint in the refinement stages in the same exact places I put it in the other stages. I noticed in the beginning block in what I wanted it to do in terms of moving your eye. And the middle stage, I expanded on that a little bit. And then here in the refinement stage, I'm just expanding it a little bit further. So the refinement stage, the main focal area is smaller marks, saturated color, expanded out a little bit. You'll see me here in a second jump over to the far right side and do a little bit up there. And kind of follow into the middle. I had 2 or 3 other spots there that I wanted to lead your eye to. And so leading your eye and knowing where you want to lead your eye from the beginning stages all the way to the end stage is important. Otherwise, we run into this trap of just sort of putting paint everywhere and not knowing where it really when to stop at that point. Number 4 in the refinement stage is a really important step here. So it is about the principles or finding principles within your design to enhance your painting. So at the beginning, we had elements of color, line, shape, form, texture, space, value. And there are principles. So I think a principle is like the verbs to those elements or nouns. And what they do is they organize the elements. So in this case, I'm taking shape, that I've noticed in the blades of grass and in some of the other shape making I've done. And I started to notice that there's a repetition to them, but more than that, there's really a rhythm to them. And so I'm taking these cut pieces of paper here to show you how I see that and then how I go about seeing it throughout the rest of the painting. And what's really interesting is once I have this and I really look for at least pattern or rhythm or balance to all of that, and if I can figure out what that is in terms of mark making in my case, I really have something that can help me finish the painting rather than just overlooking at the reference the whole time. In other words, if I make these shapes have a rhythm to them in terms of the blades of grass, the other mark making in the sky even almost has these sort of triangular looking shapes to them, and I use that as a big shape versus the blades of grass, you'll start to see a rhythm to the whole piece that really holds it all together. And that's a really important part of the design. And I don't really overdo it until I get to the refinement stage because this can be overdone too. Number 5, as we're nearing the end of the painting here, is really about, I think, 2 words, balance and unity, and really understanding the difference between the two towards the end. So balance, as I just mentioned previously, and unity. Balance really means left to right, top to bottom, within the square or rectangle of your painting. And I use a mirror here a lot of times, which isn't in this frame, but I basically turn around and I have a mirror set up on an easel and I can look at it backwards, which is really helpful for balance. If something feels a little bit off in terms of balance, left to right, especially on this one, I'll be able to tell, I think, more so right away if I get to look at it forwards and then all of a sudden turn around and look at it backwards, and I can just see it easier than just looking at it normally the whole time. Because the reality is you've been looking at this painting for one way, facing forward the whole time. So mirror work at the end is very, very helpful for balance. And the other word, I think, unity, the difference is with unity, you're trying to basically not just balance left to right, top to bottom, you're trying to unify all of the elements that you had previously worked with. And the good news is they're all on the canvas. It's just a matter of tweaking them and making them work together. So basically, I have a rhythm that I introduced. And as I introduce this rhythm of the shape making, I got to be careful that it doesn't get too interesting to overpower the idea of these separate focal points that I set up to lead your eye. So that's a good example of unity and kind of keeping that in check between these two major elements. And the other thing is, especially with color, color is the most powerful element that we have. So as I juggle color and I put it down, I got to be mindful of rhythm. I got to be mindful of my focal areas. And I have to unify all 3 of those major ideas at the end here to make sure that neither one of them is really overpowering the other, and they really get unified and balanced into one singular whole painting. So as we're at the end of this final stage here, the last things that you may not see are really to sign the piece, and I always look for a bottom left corner, if it's there, to put my signature, and I like to use either a color or a value that kind of hides my signature in there. So it doesn't really interrupt the painting. I spent this long trying to design it and lead your eye. And sometimes I don't like that title to overpower anything. So unless you're looking for it, you won't see it, but you'll know that it's there if you're looking for it. And the other thing I think is a title. Titles are something that over the years I've put more and more work into and more thought into, and I really try to, throughout the whole process of the painting from the beginning to the middle to the end, as I'm thinking about some of these things, I'm kind of writing along the way, and that way it's not this last minute thing at the end just to kind of throw in a title just to finish it. So, writing along the way as you are doing your piece really helps you inform your title at the end. So thank you again for watching this final refinement stage, and please like, comment, and share, and thanks again. Thanks for watching.